Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Eleanor and today I'm going to do my review of The Secret Commonwealth, The Book of Dust number 2 by Philip Pullman. I'm going to start off by saying that this book was quite a disappointment to me. This video is going to be full of spoilers because I don't know how to accurately tell you my feelings on this book without delving into quite big spoilers, so be aware of that before watching this video. If you've not read the book, maybe don't watch this video. To place this in the universe, so the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman focuses on a character called Lyra when she's about 12 years old. The first Book of Dust book, the La Belle Sauvage, focuses on Lyra when she's a baby, and another character called Malcolm when he's about 12 years old. And then this second Book of Dust, The Secret Commonwealth, is now set 20 years after La Belle Sauvage, so Lyra is now 20 years old, and it's 8 years after the His Dark Materials trilogy's ended, and Malcolm, who's in La Belle Sauvage, is now in his early 30s. I hope that wasn't too confusing. The one thing that I'll say that I really enjoyed and thought was quite interesting was how Philip Pullman is writing companion books to his original trilogy. He's not just writing lots of prequel books and he's not just writing lots of sequel books. He's straddling both, and he's made one prequel so far and now he's made sequels. So it's quite interesting to see how the characters grow and change through 3 different periods in their life. And I'll have to say that that's quite interesting to read, and some of the characterisation has been done really well in that sense and was done quite successfully. Now this book I actually found really quite confusing, working out what on earth was going on. What was the plot of this book? I'm not even sure I actually know, having read it, what this plot was about. You open up with Lyra. She's back at uni in Oxford. She's 20 years old and she's having some issues with her demon, Pantalaimon. They're not getting on. Something has soured their relationship. And I thought it would have been interesting if it was due to events happening in the original His Dark Materials series 8 years previous. Maybe there's still things that they haven't come to terms with, and there's things that have made them grow apart, and that she's going through maybe some kind of depression or something like that, because obviously your demon is your externalization of your soul in physical form in this world. So I thought it would be an interesting thing to, like, an interesting discussion for Philip Pullman to have within this book, but it seems to just stem from what Lyra's studying and Pantalaimon not quite agreeing with all the philosophy books and all the things she's studying at uni. And maybe there is a bit of bad blood just because of what happened in the original trilogy, but it's not very apparent. And the whole part of Pantalaimon abandoning Lyra and running off because he thinks she doesn't have any imagination is really bizarre, and it's a very childish reaction, and I don't quite understand why they don't just talk to each other. I know that's easier said than done, but to actually properly run away and abandon Lyra just seems quite out of place and quite strange. And then there's this whole plot about the rosewater and what the rosewater is used for and signifies, and you don't even really find out what it's properly used for, but it's suddenly the whole mystery, and they have to travel to this place in the Middle East to find out where this rosewater comes from. And I have no idea what's going on. Obviously there's secret Commonwealth, there's secret hidden societies, there's lots of inference about bad things about the church. Philip Pullman talks about religion quite a lot, and he talks quite badly about it. But I just didn't feel like I knew what was going on. They were being so subtle and so secretive about all these secret societies and all these going on and all these whispered conversations that even I, as a reader, didn't really have a clue what was going on, and I didn't know what the point was. So you now have Malcolm, who was in the first book, La Belle Sauvage, and he's now in his early 30s. He was a professor of Lyra's, and he taught her a little bit, but they didn't quite get on, but they don't really have much interaction. But now he's part of this secret society. He's in the secret society along with Hannah, who you meet in La Belle Sauvage. And it's centred around the lethometer, and it's working against the government slash church within this world. But you still don't really know why, like what is going on. And then a kind of across Europe jaunt ensues, where Lyra's chasing after Pantalaimon looking for a demon, whilst trying to work out what's going on with the roses. Malcolm's going after her to try and get Lyra, to try and get Pantalaimon, and then to try and find out what's happening with the roses. And I'm like, what is with these roses? What is going on? What is the point in this? This book was far too long. I mean, how long is it? It's just shy of 700 pages. And I feel like so much of this could be trimmed down. It was so slow paced. And I just didn't see the point. It's such a filler book. And the ending was such a huge cliffhanger. Like nothing happened in this book. Absolutely nothing. And I was so disappointed that there wasn't any real links to the original trilogy. This book is set 8 years after the original His Dark Materials trilogy. And if you've read it, you know angels coming out of the sky, there's armoured bears everywhere, there's a war across dimensions. And it's like it never happened. This book erases that. You're back in Oxford, nothing ever happened. And unless this is the kind of correlation between Pantalaimon thinking that Lyra's lost her imagination, and that's then inferring that the His Dark Materials trilogy was a dream, which I really hope not, because that is the worst writing trope you could ever use, saying it was all a dream. I will be so mad if the next book in this series alludes to that. Because the whole point of that His Dark Materials, I don't know where I'm going. One of the major aspects of the original His Dark Materials trilogy was the idea of separating children from their demons, where they go through this thing, I think it was called intercision, where they cut the demon away and they separate them. And in that original trilogy, it alludes to the fact that only witches can separate quite far distances from their demon, and this was a new procedure in place that they'd never been done before, that was like being highly researched and was a new thing and all that. And in this book, totally undermines that whole subplot in that original trilogy and changes it. Philip Pullman's changing what he's written. He's changing his own canon to the story, because in this book I couldn't tell you how many different people both Lyra and Pantalaimon meet that can separate from their demons. It's just a fairly rare thing, but it's happening often enough that it's a thing people know about. Other people can sense, if you're separated from your demon, you go up to other people in society, they can tell that there's something wrong with you and that you don't have a demon, and you're ostracized for it. It must be a fairly common thing if that's the reaction that everyone has. And the further away from Oxford and Georgian College Lyra goes, the more people she meets that can do that. And it's like, how is this a thing in this world when it's not it's not connected to the original trilogy in the same way? It's just something that can happen. If people get mad enough at their demon, they can just separate, or they can sell their demon and things like that. And it's just so many things that just don't seem to marry up with the original trilogy. And it just really annoyed me, because the original trilogy is so good. It's one of my favourite trilogies, and I've reread it many a time. And this book just changes so many things, and it just made me really mad. The one thing I will say is that I do quite like Malcolm's character. I thought he made an interesting person. You do see some of the characterization of him being like 12 in the Belle Sauvage, and his sense of adventure and finding out the truth and things like that. And he really wants to be a scholar, so he goes to uni and he becomes a professor and he does teach. But because he's embroidered in the secret society, he does get a bit of his action adventure in there, which is fun and interesting, and it does make his viewpoint fun because he gets into some fight scenes, some interesting things happen, and that did up the ante, make it a bit more exciting for certain places. But in the end, so much of this book was set in little cafes where they were just overhearing conversations or talking to people and getting information. And at the end of the day, I just didn't have a clue what the point was. Like, what was the point in this book? This book is too long to be this empty. And then at the end, Lyra's reached this place where she's hoping Pantalaimon will be, because this is where the only demons can go who are separated from their humans. And this is where you find out what happened, what's with the roses and stuff. And then it ends. That is the most worst cliffhanger ever. And at the end, it just leaves you so unsatisfied with this book. And I'm just really mad because I love the His Dark Materials trilogy, and La Belle Sauvage I really enjoyed as well. It was very different, but I thought it was a good setup prequel book, and you could see the beginning happenings of what led to the original His Dark Materials trilogy in that first prequel book. And then I expected to come into this, like on the other side of this big, huge war, there's going to be, had been like huge upheaval in this world. And it was like it was erased. It's like it never happened. So I probably will still read the next, his Book of Dust, because I am interested to find out, was this even worth it? Like, what was the point? But overall, I'm just quite mad and annoyed that I spent so long reading this. I think the only reason I did finish this in such a timely fashion, after owning it for ages and not picking it up because it's so political and I don't really read political books, was because Michael Sheen was the audiobook narrator, and he's excellent. If you can get your hands on an audiobook that's been narrated by Michael Sheen, go for it. He was absolutely brilliant. I listened to about the first 80% on audiobook, but because I borrowed it from my library, it ran out and I had to read the last little portion of this book. And I think he is hands down the only reason I actually finished reading it. So this is actually turned out to be a really negative review. There's so many things in this that just made me really annoyed and frustrated. I'd love to know your thoughts if you've read this. What did you think? How does it fit in with the already established world? Because in my opinion, it doesn't. It erases everything and acts like none of that ever happened. But I'd love to know what you liked about this and what you actually think. And if you'll be continuing on reading, I think I am, just because I just want to find out what the outcome is. And I'm praying that it isn't going to be all a dream. I will be so angry if it is. But yeah, that is my semi-rant review over. Thank you for watching this video. I'm not normally this keyed up for books I read. But if you like this video, please be sure to subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, my links are in the description if you want to follow me on Goodreads or Twitter or even Instagram. I'm on all the social medias. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.